let's jump right in. If you've read Hermann Hesse's classic novel Siddhartha, you probably remember it as this profound, almost serene tale of enlightenment, the timeless wisdom of the river, right? But today in this explainer, we're flipping the script entirely. We're looking at this masterpiece through a completely different, character-driven lens. We're going to look not just at what Siddhartha found, but what he left behind. Which brings us to the core question we're tackling today. Can a man really become wise without confronting the pain he caused? We're taking the spotlight off Siddhartha's solitary enlightenment and shining it directly on the emotional wake he left behind. Like, what if his greatest lessons didn't actually come from spiritual gurus, but from the collateral damage of his very own journey? Before we dive into these emotional confrontations, let's just quickly reorient ourselves with the timeline of his journey. It starts in his youth, right, when he leaves his father's home. Then in young adulthood, he wanders with the ascetic samanas and leaves his best friend Govinda behind. Moving into adulthood, he dives into the material world, experiences love with Kamala in the city, and then eventually leaves her too. And finally, in old age, he becomes the ferryman at the river, which is where his own son eventually leaves him. So, here's our roadmap for today. First, the cost of enlightenment. 2. Did you look back? 3. Friend or follower. 4. Did you ever love me? 5. The burden of freedom. And 6. Read the final conversation. Part 1. The cost of enlightenment. The people left behind. The whole premise of our source material today is this incredible imaginary scenario. Basically, the key figures from Siddhartha's past arrive at the river where he's now an old ferryman. But they aren't there to seek his wisdom. Nope, they're carrying some heavy, unresolved questions. We've got his father, the man who had to just watch him walk away into the night. We have Govinda, the devoted childhood friend left in the dust. There's Kamala, the lover who taught him intimacy, only to be left behind. And his son, the grieving boy who just desperately wanted his own freedom. These are the emotional stakes we're dealing with today. Part 2. Did you look back? Confronting the father. Here, we're addressing the deep, unresolved tension between Siddhartha and the father he defied. And there is just a massive disconnect in perspectives here. On the one hand, you have Siddhartha's internal justification. To him, leaving home was this absolutely necessary, noble step for spiritual freedom. He framed his father's pain as just mere attachment. But on the flip side, you have the harsh reality his father actually lived. For him, leaving wasn't philosophical. It meant abandoning a parent who truly loved you. The pain was agonizingly real. This whole dynamic is perfectly captured in this devastating quote from the father. Listen to this. I remember answering calmly, "My son has gone to seek wisdom." Everyone thought that sounded noble. No one asked what it felt like to have a son who needed wisdom more than he needed you. Wow. That really hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It brilliantly shows how society is so quick to romanticize the independent seeker while completely ignoring the real loneliness of the people left waiting at home.
And it all builds to this incredibly profound realization. The father tells him, every departure creates two stories. The person who leaves remembers the road. The person who remains remembers the empty place. Siddhartha basically spent his whole life believing that leaving required courage, but this moment forces him to acknowledge the massive amount of courage it takes to be the one who stays behind and mourns. Both stories are real. Both are valid.
Moving on to part 3, friend or follower, the interrogation of Govinda. So now, Siddhartha's childhood friend, the guy who literally always walked a step behind him, finally speaks up. And again, notice the profound disconnect. Siddhartha always looked at their separation as this clean, ideological choice. Govinda chose the Buddha, Siddhartha chose his own path. Nice and philosophical. But Govinda, he's like, no, I followed you out of love, and you just kept moving. He didn't just choose a different philosophy, he lost his absolute best friend. And Siddhartha never even paused to acknowledge the heartbreak of that. Which brings us to this really powerful insight from Govinda. He says, sometimes someone can stand beside us for years and still slowly disappear inside the role we have given them. Siddhartha's intense certainty, his independence, it inadvertently boxed Govinda into the role of the follower. He made him feel small, not on purpose, not out of cruelty, but just by constantly looking at him with this sort of subtle pity, assuming Govinda was weak because he needed a teacher. Part 4. Did you ever love me? Kamala's cross-examination. Now things escalate to the complexities of romantic intimacy with Kamala. Their approaches to love? Literally polar opposites. Siddhartha treated love like it was just another discipline, like fasting or meditating, Something to learn, master, and observe. He was totally fine with desire, but honestly, he was terrified of true dependence. Kamala, though, she gets it. She understands that real love requires vulnerability. It's allowing someone to matter enough that they can actually wound you. She realized Siddhartha always kept a piece of himself totally locked away and safe. And because of that, Kamala delivers this absolutely brilliant, cutting critique. She tells him, "I sometimes felt that I existed inside your search more than you existed inside my life." Think about that. She's pointing out how Siddhartha essentially turned the people he loved into stepping stones for his own personal growth. When he walked away from the city, he wasn't really thinking about Kamala, the person. He was thinking about leaving behind the abstract symbols of desire and wealth. He reduced her to a lesson. Part 5. The Burden of Freedom, the Sun's Rebellion. This is the moment Siddhartha's philosophy truly spectacularly crashes into reality. The sun does not hold back at all. He stands there and hits him with this blistering accusation. You have a remarkable talent for becoming wiser from other people's pain. Ouch, right? It just slices right through Siddhartha's enlightened, peaceful facade. The sun is livid that his own real trauma, losing his mother, being dragged to live by the river, is just being processed as another neat little spiritual lesson in Siddhartha's grand journey to compassion. And it exposes this brutal hypocrisy. Think back. When Siddhartha was young, he demanded endless freedom. His departure was framed as the sacred, courageous search for the self. But now, when his own son demands that exact same right to go to the city and make his own mistakes, Siddhartha treats it like a tragedy that he absolutely has to stop. He finally realizes he's doing exactly what his father did to him, trying to protect his kid out of fear, instead of giving him the freedom he desperately needs. We definitely hit the emotional peak of the explainer right here. The son flat out refuses to be reduced to a teachable moment. He says, "I do not want to be the pain that helped you become wise. I wanted to be your son." It is just a heartbreaking plea to be seen as an actual human being, rather than a symbol or a catalyst for someone else's enlightenment. Part 6. Read The Final Conversation, the Ultimate Teacher. So after these 4 incredibly intense, worldview-shattering conversations, the entire narrative focus shifts. Because out of the shadows of the riverbank, a final figure steps into the lamplight. It's the one man Siddhartha once boldly walked away from, Gautama Buddha. And he is fully prepared to question the very foundation of Siddhartha's lifelong ego and independence. The Buddha looks at him and presents this piercing inquiry that completely deconstructs the whole myth of the perfectly independent seeker. He asks, how much of your search was hunger for truth, and how much was hunger to be the one who found it? Boom. He is directly challenging Siddhartha to realize that his immense pride in rejecting all teachers might actually have been its own form of ego and attachment. Now, the way the Buddha picks apart Siddhartha's lifelong philosophy from here is absolutely incredible. And seeing how Siddhartha finally learns to actually listen to the people around him, rather than just the river, is profound. But, as promised, we've only covered the first 4 conversations today. If you want to read the rest of this extraordinary confrontation with the Buddha, and you really should, you need to check out the full source text. Go directly to imaginarytalks.com/Siddhartha-explained-through its characters to see exactly how this incredible gathering concludes. So what's the big takeaway from all of this? It's that wisdom doesn't give us a free pass on our relationships. It leaves us with this final, genuinely provocative thought. Can you seek your own truth without turning others into mere chapters in your story? Can you let people just be people? Think about that as you reflect on your own journey. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I will catch you on the next explainer.